Hello. Hi. I'm back. And we're going to be talking about a good case. We're getting into this one here on my channel. We're going to start deep diving it. This will be part 1. I already have part 2 ready to go. And part 3 and 4 are in the works. So, hello. Welcome back. My name is Melly. Let me get comfortable. Grab your water, grab your drinks, whatever you need to get through this live. Thank you for being here. Can you guys see me and hear me okay? Let me know. Let me see who's here. I saw Sane pop in here. 818. Augie. Sam. Where's Jules at? Yes, please hit the like button on your way in. Help your girl out. Our little channel here is growing. I appreciate it so much too. We are going to, and I hope you guys have been having a great weekend. I took a day off yesterday to hang out with my family and stuff. So sorry, I had a bunch of lives planned, but change of plans. I try to spend as much quality time as I can with my family. Alamea. Hello. Okay, we're going to be talking about Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew. They're married. This is wild. This is wild. I'm going to start with a little bit of background. We're going to read the 10-page indictment that just came out. This will be the second indictment. We're going to watch a 15-minute press conference. I want to watch a 3-minute interview from Barry the last time he was arrested. So there's a lot to this case. I'm going to try my best. We're going to watch an episode about this case as well after all of this. And that's going to give you like a 48 episode. That's going to give you like all the details of the case. I thought it was really well put together. So I wanted to share that as well. Okay, so who is Suzanne Morphew? I don't know if you guys have heard of this case. This case originally happened back in 2020, Mother's Day of 2020. And basically her remains were discovered on September 22nd, 2023, 3 years after her disappearance, which was May 10th, 2020. This is a case out of Colorado. And most of the events in the investigation led to her husband, Barry, being the likely suspect. And he was indicted the first time. So basically they knew that it was him who had committed the crime. What crime did he commit? Well, Suzanne went missing while she was on a bike ride. And let me just say, the charges were dropped the first time. So you're like, wait, what's going on? So if you're not familiar with the case, he was charged and the charges were dropped due to inadequate evidence and management. And so even though the charges were dropped, the case remained open. And that allows basically open by prejudice, which means that at any point when new information is retrieved, they can reopen the case and do something. So that's basically what that means. And that's basically what's happened this week. There has been an indictment. He has been re-indicted for the second time, which is wild. There was DNA. So she went missing. They were at her home. Her two girls, I'm going to give you a little background about her. They met in high school, her and Barry. They dated for 6 years before they got married. They have 2 daughters named Mallory and Macy. And on that Mother's Day, they were going to all celebrate and do something together. But Barry said he owned a landscaping company and he said he was going to go do like an estimate or a job or something. And so he went and did that. And then the girls were off doing something and they were all supposed to come back and meet in the evening to celebrate Mother's Day with Suzanne. Well, Suzanne never showed up. She went missing. Her daughters kept on texting her, and her daughters were like, we can't get a hold of her. And their dad was 3 hours away on this so-called landscaping trip. And, this case reminds me, I just have to say, if you guys are true crimers like me, I get Bryan Kohberger case in the vibes in this case and Chris Watts. A lot of what Barry did and a lot of his actions really remind me of Chris Watts, because it is said that allegedly on May 9th, they had like a steak dinner, they were hanging out, they had sex, went to bed, but it is alleged that she was killed on May 9th. So they supposedly go to bed at like 8:39, but once we get to the evidence part, we'll find out the telemetry patterns from his vehicle don't prove that. So he wasn't sleeping at 8:30 that night. But anyways, and that reminded me a lot of Chris Watts, because if you remember in the Chris Watts case, he would say like, he said that, him and his wife went, I think she said they had sex and then she was still sleeping in the morning, but he was out there committing crimes. And that's what Barry said too. He said that he left in the morning at like 4:30 a.m., which we end up finding out that that's a lie as well. So everything basically Barry said is a lie, is what we come to find out at the end of all of this. So basically, she goes missing. She's supposed to be on a bike rider. She's an avid mountain biker person. She likes to ride it. She likes to stay healthy, etc. So there was DNA that was found in her car. And I just want to say that that DNA that was found in her Range Rover was linked to a possible serial assaulter whose DNA had contributed to other cases in other states. And that also reminded me of the Brian Kohberger case, the whole touch DNA thing. But also it's like, wait, I think that plays a role as to why the charges got dropped the first time, because they didn't have proof, I guess, or enough evidence that it was Barry. But also that was a good thing for the defense to say, well, there was other DNA found in the car. So it's like, so was it Barry's or was it somebody else? So there's a lot to this case. And this is just part one. We're going to deep dive at everything. I got all the documents. We're doing it. Suzanne was born on April 11th, 1971. And like, she was born to Adrian and Jean, her parents. Like I said, they have 2 daughters. What am I missing? I'm just like going off because of all of these details, but let me check in with you guys. You guys are like, wait, I'm taking notes. This is class time. Hey, Laura. Okay, now you answered. I was confused how they knew the day she went missing and found 3.5 later. Yes. Hello, number 7. And hello, did I say hi, Augie? Hi, Augie. I believe I did. Hello, my love. Okay, so she goes missing. And just a little background, they lived originally in Indiana and they moved to Maysville, Colorado for a fresh start because in 2018, Suzanne had gotten cancer and she beat cancer twice, which is how they end up back in Colorado, which is where this crime happened. So they moved to Colorado and Barry is an avid hunter. Like he hunts, well, I don't know if he's actually a hunter, but what came out, he's a hunter and they bought a 7 or 8 acre property so that he could hunt. But this plays a big role in the case because what he was doing, and it is illegal, and I'm horrified, was he was tranquilizing elk, giving them like tranquilizer and keeping their horns and stuff. Is that what they're called? They're not horns. They're antlers, whatever they're called. I forget the word from. And it's illegal. So this came out on the case that, he was doing this illegally. Antlers. Yeah, that's what they're called. Thank you. And that's horrifying. When I heard that part, you guys are probably thinking like, that's what was a red flag to you, Melly? But that is a red flag to me. Like, not that every hunter is a killer, because like a human killer, that's not what I'm trying to get at. What I'm just saying is like, I'm a very spiritual person, and in that realm, animals are like sacred. So to me, when I heard that part, I was like, oh yeah, it was him. He did it. Arrest him, put him away. Like, because I was like, that's terrible. I'm sure it's common, and if you do that, well, it's illegal, 1, so don't tell us. And 2, I'm not like big on the hunting thing, clearly. So anyways, the tranquilizer that he was giving these elk and deer and whatever wildlife animal is what he ended up injecting into Suzanne, allegedly. We're going to read the indictment. He has to be tried in a trial first, but allegedly that is what happened. Her autopsy, which I'm going to just read one part of it because it's like a few different pages, but we're going to skip the science, like all the, how much does the organs weigh and all of that. I'm just going to read the cause of death from her autopsy because that's what they ended up finding in the femur of her, in the head of her femur. Years later, they were able to trace. I'm going to go through the autopsy, the ingredients for that tranquilizer. So, who else would have that tranquilizer? Barry. Anyway, so like I said, she was riding her mountain bike. That was her hobby on May 10th, 2020. So we're going to read the indictment. We're going to get a lot of facts there too. And this is just the 10-page indictment that was released this week. I have the first one, which we're going to cover maybe later today in a live, if not tomorrow. I do have 2 other lives planned, so make sure you turn on your notifications for today. It's a very wild case, and I'm very excited to start deep diving it. I have already started. let me see, anything else before we need to read on to the indictment? There's a lot of details I'm missing, but they'll come as we read. And that episode of 48 will show a lot of the important details. And so will the arrest warrant and the affidavit and stuff. Wasn't the only one that bought a certain tranquilizer or something that was in there? Yeah, and he had a lot of it. And then the cap of the dart tranquilizer thing was found in the dryer. And so the defense, of course, used that as like, well, we don't know when it got there. And clearly it worked because the charges were dropped the first time. But here we are again. And I am so glad he has been indicted again. His daughters have been in support of him. I don't know what it's like now, but, you know, that's probably a hard place to be in. So here we go. Yeah, in the dryer, because he was washing clothes and stuff. There's a lot of stuff. He ends up like saying that he goes to a landscaping meeting, and then he ends up going to a hotel. What they basically think, this is what the prosecution, this is what I got, is that he chased her around the house. They were getting in a fight. There's signs that he was physically and mentally abusive. She had in her notes on her phone, like all of these diary entries of things that was going on with him. And what is the motive for Barry to kill his wife? Well, she was having an affair. Yeah, I know. Who does this remind you of, right? I got so many weird vibes. This reminds me of the Jared Bridegan case, which we are still deep diving here. I just haven't touched on it in a minute. Now that Karen is over, I have time to get caught up on everything. Dear Lord, that was like 100 million days of Karen Reid. Okay, but anyways, I'm getting distracted. So what was I saying? Oh, okay, yeah. So basically, yeah, so the tranquilizer, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I was saying, okay. Oh, right. So it reminds me of like all these cases, because that last day that he spent with her, he was saying that it was the best day they ever had. And where did we hear that? We heard that in Sebastian Rogers' case. We hear in the Chris Watts case. We hear in all of them where they're like, oh, we had the best date before the person goes missing, which is, you know, usually a lie. But anyways, so the prosecution believes that they were fighting. She was trying to leave. She was having an affair. It was for a long time. It was with this man named Jeff, who she met in high school. So that's in my opinion, I think that is the absolute motive. Suzanne wanted to leave Barry. She had sent a text to her friends 2 to 4 days prior to her missing that she wanted out. She was looking to get divorced. Barry didn't acted like he didn't know about the affair when he found out by the first while the investigation was going on the first time, but Barry knew. I believe Barry had gone through her phone. I think he knew, and I just think, I'm not married, but I just think as you know, when your partner, you have a feeling. I feel like sometimes a gut feeling, and she was with this man. She was dating this man who having an affair with him. She knew him in high school, and she lived out. When she moved to Colorado, she connected with him via Facebook. And so I think that was motive. And it is alleged that he was abusive and that he had a drinking problem. I don't know. That's what they're saying. Anyway, so he put his phone on airplane mode that day, and he alleges that he went to a hotel for like something with work, but the prosecution believes that he cut her up. Yeah, cut the body up. I think that's what they believed initially, that he cut her up and then he got rid of her body in different places. Who does that remind you of? Stephen Stearns going to dumps, right? And disposing of evidence, because he went to 5 different places to dump trash that he said was trash from his truck. So there's a lot going on, but let's get through this indictment. This is just the first one. This is 10 pages. I have the original one, which is like 200 pages, but we're going to read it. This was filed this week. And it says count 1, murder in the first degree. On or about May 9th to May 10th, 2020, in the tribal state of Colorado, Barry Morphew unlawfully, feloniously, after liberation, with intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Suzanne Morphew. Probable cause for count 1 is as follows. Hey, thanks for everyone popping in. Good to see y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Okay, so at 5:46 p.m. on May 10th, 2020, on Mother's Day, Sunday, Suzanne Morphew was reported missing to a police by her neighbor. The last known person to see her alive was her husband, Barry Morphew. Investigators responded to the Morphew residence at 19057 Puma Path near Salida, Colorado, to investigate the missing persons report. The house was locked and Suzanne Morphew was not home. Her vehicle was in the garage. Her Range Rover is what she had. Vehicle was in the garage and there was no signs of forced entry, and her bike was missing. I don't know why they redact that part. It's in the videos, so whatever. Later that evening, her bike was located down a hillside off of a dirt road between her house and Highway 50. The bike was located less than a mile from the Morphew home. On May 14th, 2020, her bike and helmet was located 10 meters off the side of Highway 50, approximately 1.52 miles west of the Morphew home and approximately 0.84 miles west of where her bike was located. And that was one of the tips that tipped the investigators off. It was like, wait, her stuff was found still on their property. You guys have to remember they had I think it was 8 acres of property because he wanted to hunt animals horridly. I still can't get over that. But anyways, we'll touch back on that. Barry Morphew was interviewed and told police that he had set his alarm and woke up at 4:30 a.m. on May 10th, 2020. He told police that he left at 5 a.m. on May 10th for a pre-planned work trip in Broomfield, Colorado. According to Barry, Suzanne was still asleep in the bed when he left the house at 5 a.m. on May 10th. He told police she planned to ride her bike that day. Barry stated that upon arriving in Broomfield that morning, he checked into a hotel, leaving shortly after the job site. He told police that he had received a call around 5 p.m. on May 10th from his neighbors while physically at the Broomfield job site. The neighbors told Barry that his daughters were concerned because they could not reach Suzanne all day. Barry instructed the neighbors to check the house and specifically to look for her bike. The neighbors reported that Barry that neither Suzanne nor the bike were at the house. Barry then instructed them to call the sheriff. So the prosecution believes that she was unalived on May 9th, and this was all like a lie at this point. Police interviewed one of Barry's employees scheduled to assist him with the Broomfield job. The employee told law enforcement that the employee and Barry were not planning to leave from Broomfield until the evening hours of May 10th. They were supposed to drive together. Instead, Barry left without telling the employee. Barry called the employee at approximately 11:18 a.m. and informed the employee that he had left without them. When the employee arrived in Broomfield on Sunday evening, the employee noticed that Barry Morphew had failed to bring the proper tools with him for the job, and the necessary materials for the job had not yet arrived at the job site. Review of the cameras at the hotel nearby businesses revealed that Barry was in the Broomfield area for approximately 9 hours and 45 minutes. Of those hours, he spent less than 1/2 hour at the job site. Instead, besides 2 brief visits to the job site area, electronic evidence and cameras from businesses showed him driving around to various locations and discarding unknown items in separate trash cans. Hotel footage then showed Barry Morphew arriving at his hotel room and remaining inside the room from approximately 12:34 to 5:55 p.m. Inconsistent with his statement to police, he was in the hotel and not at the job site when he received the call about his wife Suzanne being unresponsive and missing. Though his job later comes out and says that was all a lie. The job, that wasn't even the day the job was supposed to start. Yeah, so I forgot to mention, he was a draft for the Toronto Blue Jays, Barry, back in the day, and then he got an injury and he got into landscaping. So this is why he had that was like his job. Hello, Christine, good to see you. In early interviews with Barry, he told law enforcement that his marriage to Suzanne was the best and that the two had a wonderful weekend together. When Barry was asked whether Suzanne would say anything different about the relationship, Barry stated no. Barry's statements about his marriage to Suzanne were inconsistent with other witness accounts and evidence located. Specifically, investigators learned that Suzanne confided in people that she was unhappy in the marriage in the weeks and months leading to her disappearance. She discussed plans to divorce Barry Morphew with her close friend. She maintained documented notes of problems in the relationship recovered from electronic devices and the physical search of the Morphew home. Suzanne had been having a secret affair with an old acquaintance who lived out of state. She communicated with him daily over LinkedIn and WhatsApp. Suzanne's last known electronic message to anyone was to this person on May 9th, 2020 at 2:11 p.m., just 32 minutes before Barry returned home that day. An overall timeline of the week of Suzanne's disappearance shows the disappearance coincided with her daughter, redacted, the only other occupant of the Morphew residence, leaving on a pre-planned road trip out of state. Because of this, Suzanne and Barry expected to be alone on the residence starting on May 5th, 2020, until either late in the day on May 10th into May 11th. Suzanne drove, redacted, to Gunnison, Colorado on May 5th, 2020, her daughter, to depart with her sister and her friend on the planned road trip. After May 5th, Barry and Suzanne were alone at the house. A forensic download of Barry's cell phone revealed that Barry had deleted a text chain with Suzanne from which an image of a single text remained. A screenshot of this single message was saved on Barry's phone on May 6th, 2020. The image revealed a text message from Suzanne that stated, quote unquote, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." So she was out. She wanted out. She did not want to be with him anymore. On May 11th, 2020, authorities commenced a search of the Morphew residence that spanned several days. The state of the residence and vehicles showed no signs of break-in or an intruder. Even with no signs of a break-in or an intruder, law enforcement collected items of potential evidence and DNA swabs. DNA analysis of the swabs collected produced several DNA profile mixtures consistent with what would be expected in the common areas of a home or a vehicle. The mixture profiles were processed through offender databases and were compared to the profiles of known individuals who may have been present in the vehicles or the residence. The results did not lead to any stranger or intruder suspects. An expert in DNA analysis testified that law enforcement provided analysts with one of the partial profiles developed from the glove box of Suzanne's vehicle for further investigation using a keyboard search. This allowed for additional comparisons to profiles in more databases with less stringent quality control standards than the National DNA Index System for the limited purpose of creating possible investigative leads. That expert further testified that there were matches to outside databases nationwide. The term matched used by a DNA analyst does not mean identical. Rather, a match only means that there were profiles that could not be excluded at the limited number of loci available from the partial profile for comparison. The expert explained that she compared the matches from those databases to the partial profile from the mixture on the glove box and excluded those out-of-state profiles as not originating from the same contributor in all but 3 instances. Finally, the expert explained that just because the profiles from those databases matched at the limited loci available for comparison, it did not mean that any of the people from the out-of-state profiles were the same person that contributed to the partial profile to the mixture on the glove box. Law enforcement investigated those 3 possible matches obtained from 3 separate out-of-state sources and found no connections to the case. We know about DNA here because if you took notes, like good little students you are, we covered touch DNA. We read that whole Bryan Kohberger document about what is the difference between touch DNA and blah, 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 right? Law enforcement located a locked gun safe in the garage during the search of the Morphew residence. Inside that safe, law enforcement located a dart rifle or a tranquilizer rifle positioned toward the front of the safe. Law enforcement also found packages of new dart brand tranquilizer darts in the safe. The packages of darts included capped hypodermic needles inside of them, which were designed to load the darts. Law enforcement found one of these needle caps in the dryer after the dryer contents were removed. Law enforcement also found men's shorts among the contents of the dryer that were removed prior to finding the needle cap. Those shorts appeared to be consistent with Barry Morphew was seen on video wearing on May 9th, less than 1 hour before he returned to the residence. No tranquilizer formula was located during law enforcement search of the home and vehicles. So like I said, he would use that to take the elk down and commit illegal crimes, I guess, against animals, because I think it's illegal in I really don't know the hunting laws, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that. Put them down and take their antlers. I don't know. I'm not a professional in the hunting. I never understand the DNA. It's so confusing. Yeah, it is. Unless they find more incriminating evidence, he's going to walk. Well, he walked 1 time. So this is the 2nd time around. I missed class and I get an F. You're fine, Laura. Police investigated numerous electronic devices in Suzanne's social media accounts, searching, among other things, for proof of life. The investigation revealed that Suzanne had not communicated electronically with any living person after 2:11 p.m. on May 9th, 2020. Her last possible activity on any account was protected by password access was 3:08 p.m. over 24 hours prior to her being reported missing. Records showing her typical use of electronics and social media demonstrated that this was inconsistent with her typical pattern of life in the days leading up to her disappearance. Additionally, witnesses indicated they attempted to communicate with Suzanne throughout the time frame but received no response from her. These witnesses indicated that her lack of response was out of the ordinary. Barry Morphew's electronic devices were also analyzed. A download of this infotainment system on Barry's truck revealed telematic data showing the location of and activity at the truck at certain times on May 9th and May 10th. A download of Barry's cell phone showed additional location information. Based on data from his cell phone, Barry returned to the Morphew residence at 2:43 p.m. on May 9th, 2020. The data did not show his truck or phone leaving the residence again until May 10th. So this telemetry data or whatever they end up finding in the investigation later. You guys will find out. He opened the door to his truck 80 times. Yeah, your car's snitching on him, snitching on us. So just think about that next time you commit a crime in your car. Just kidding. So yeah, the door had opened 80 times. They end up finding like all this stuff out that he lied. That's how they end up finding out he was a liar, because none of it matched to any of the info that was coming from the car and, you know, their investigation stuff. The download of Barry's cell phone registered events related to his phone. An expert forensic analyst determined that some of these events were in Barry's phone being turned off during the time frame of May 9th into May 10th. Turning off a cellular device effectively disables its ability to record location information. Specifically, the forensic analyst noted that Barry's phone download showed it was turned off at 2:47 on May 9th, only a few minutes after he arrived at the residence where Suzanne sent her last electronic communication to anyone. That reminds me of Bryan Kohberger. You know how he's like, I'm out stargazing, and he said he turned his phone off, of course. At approximately 10:17 p.m. on May 9th, 2020, the phone was turned back on. Barry's cell phone was again turned off at 4:32 a.m. on May 10th, prior to him leaving the residence on his trip to Broomfield, Colorado, and was not turned on again until 5:37 a.m. when location information showed him on the road already in the area of Johnson Village. Yeah, like, why would you turn off your phone? That would totally be a red flag. Testimony established that the times Barry turned off his phone corresponded to periods of time of significance in the case where location information was consequently unavailable. Similarly, further analysis of the information from Barry's infotainment system, the telematics, in his truck showed an irregular gap in recorded activities. Specifically, from approximately 3:49 a.m. to approximately 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, there is no recorded data registering on Barry's infotainment system. An indication of no track activity from the telematics is inconsistent with other facts developed from Barry's phone surveillance footage and Barry's statements about his activities on May 10th. Specifically, telematic data showed Barry arrive at the residence at 2:43 p.m. on May 9th. It then registered various other activities throughout the afternoon at the residence until it ceased at 9:52 p.m. on May 9th. The telematic data showed activities resumed from 3:25 a.m. to 3:49 a.m. on May 10th at a GPS location and consistent with his driveway. Barry reported to law enforcement that he was asleep during the time frame. From 3:49 a.m. to 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, the infotainment system or telematics did not register any data despite the fact that Barry's cell phone indicated the device was in the Johnson's Village at 5:37 a.m. on the date, and Barry reported his truck traveling to Broomfield at that time. When recorded data became available again in the records from the infotainment system downloaded at 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, corresponding GPS coordinates show that Barry had already arrived in the area of Broomfield. This gap in registered data is inconsistent with the pattern of telematics captured in the days and weeks leading up to this event. So all the things like him turning his phone on and off like every hour or whatever, and then it shows that his phone had moved a bunch of times around the property, and that's when they think that he was chasing her to shoot her with the tranquilizer. Phone records for both Suzanne and Barry were analyzed by expert investigators. The FBI CAS team analyzed phone records for both Barry and Suzanne to determine location information and device usage related to their cell phones. In Suzanne's phone records, there was no indication of any user-initiated activity after the time Barry returned home at 2:43 p.m. on May 9th. Suzanne's cell phone device continued to connect through RTT data while the cell tower that services the Morphew home throughout the night of May 9th and the early morning of May 10th. These automated data connections, however, were consistent with the tower reaching out to the phone to determine its location and not initiated by the user of the device. After 4:23 a.m. on May 10th, Suzanne's phone ceased to connect at all ever again. Just 8 minutes later, Barry's cell phone data showed his phone ceased to connect starting at 4:31 a.m., consistent with the cell phone downloaded, showing it's powering off at 4:32 a.m. Suzanne's cell phone never registered to any other towers in the tower consistent with the Morphew residence from the time Barry returned home on 2:43 p.m. to the time it ceased activity altogether at 4:23 a.m. on May 10th. Despite searches for the devices, Suzanne's cell phone was never found. So remember when he was disposing of trash at 5 different locations? Why 5 different locations? And this clearly states here that between May 9th and at 2:43 p.m. and May 9th and 4:23 a.m., that was the last time that her phone ever had any activity. So that's when they believe he unalived her. Police interviewed people that knew Barry prior to his move from Indiana to Colorado in 2018. These witnesses told law enforcement that Barry was a deer farmer in Indiana. Several individuals told law enforcement that Barry used a specific tranquilizer called BAM to sedate and transport deer to his deer farm. Barry Morphew admitted to using BAM in both Indiana and Colorado. Specifically, he admitted to using BAM in Colorado as recently as April of 2020, stating that at that time he had tranquilized a deer from the breezeway of the Morphew residence. On September 22nd, 2023, human remains were found in and around a shallow clandestine grave in 𝐭𝐤𝐿 County in Colorado near Highway 17. So this happened in 2020, and no, her cell phone and her body were never found until 2023. That's insane, right? The remains were found a few hundred feet down a dirt road off Highway 17. This location was less than an hour south of the Morphew residence by main highways. The remains were determined to be those of Suzanne. The majority of the bones were recovered. Many of the bones were significantly bleached. And this is so important because when we watched the documentary here shortly, the hotel worker complained about a bleach smell in the hotel. It's terrible. Along with Suzanne's bone, law enforcement recovered a cancer report and items of clothing which were consistent with biking clothing that Suzanne was known to wear. There was no visible perimortem trauma observed. A board-certified forensic anthropologist, a botanist, and an entomologist all analyzed the remains, and several observations were noted. There was a distinct lack of bug activity, which was inconsistent with the remains having decomposed at that location. The clothing items lacked evidence of decomposition, which was inconsistent with Suzanne wearing the bike clothes at the time her body decomposed. Additionally, there was a lack of animal predation on the bones. There was only a very small amount of desiccated soft tissue found on a few of the bones, and there was no hair mass located. All these features would have been expected if this had been the original grave site where decomposition occurred. The forensic anthropologist opined that based on these factors, it was unlikely Suzanne decomposed from a fresh body to a skeleton at this location. What? So he killed her and then later, years later, like moved the body and the bones? What is actually going on here? This is terrifying. The El Paso County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy, which we will review here shortly. In addition to the standard toxicology testing, the Coroner's Office conducted additional toxicology testing at the request of law enforcement for the presence of a chemical mixture known as BAM, or the combination of butyrophenol, azaparone, and metatotamine. The chief toxicologist tested Suzanne Morphew's bone marrow for the presence of BAM. All three of the individual chemicals that compromise BAM were present. Oh, this is crazy. Additionally, the metabolite for butorphanol was present. The presence of butorphanol metabolite eliminated the possibility of postmortem BAM contamination. The metabolite's presence also indicated that her death was not immediate following the BAM exposure because Suzanne's body had begun to metabolize the drug before she died. The coroner's office determined the cause of death and manner of death as follows: homicide by unspecified means in the setting of butorphanol, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that right, azaperone and metocyanine intoxication. So he shot the dart in her, chased her around the house. She was trying to get away. And then Lord knows what happened. Don't know. This is crazy. A pharmacologist and medical doctor testified about the toxicology testing done to determine the presence of BAM in Suzanne Morphew's remains and the chemical compound itself, and about the possible effects of the compounds in humans. The expert explained that the toxicology testing done by the coroner's office met scientific standards of reliability and accuracy. He further testified that BAM is a chemical mixture of 3 specific compounds used as a tool for sedating animals for medical treatment or movement. I did a little research and I was like looking it up. I think they were saying it takes like a couple of hours for a deer to even go down. Like it's kind of intense. Back in 2020 and the years leading up to Suzanne Morphew's disappearance, BAM was sold by only one company in the US and could only be obtained by prescription from a veterinarian. BAM must be administered into the bloodstream through intravenous or intramuscular injection to be effective, as the skin and GI tract do not absorb it effectively. BAM does not cause sedation instantaneously, but takes several minutes to take effect. BAM is designed not to be lethal and comes with reversal agents in the prescription kit. However, BAM is not FDA approved for any human use. For that reason, there's no scientific studies available that address the possible effects the compound would have on humans. The pharmacology expert testified that the compound would render the recipient wholly immobile, vulnerable, and unable to resist any constrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe. I did some digging on that as well, and it was saying that in high volumes it can kill people. So I don't know. That's what I was reading. It's kind of hard to move a body. They must have new evidence found. Yeah, wait, repeat the combination. Yeah, it was like butorphanol. We'll read it off the autopsy in a second. Records were obtained for BAM prescriptions related to Barry. Records were also obtained for BAM prescriptions for all persons within the counties and adjacent counties to where the Morphews lived and where Suzanne's remains were located. Those records show that Barry obtained and filled several prescriptions for BAM while living in Indiana. Barry's last purchase of the BAM by prescription was in March of 2018. Barry obtained multiple kits that each contained multiple doses just a few months before they moved to Colorado. Records further showed that no private citizens or other private businesses in the surrounding counties had purchased BAM prescriptions from 2017 to 2020. So he's the only one, dude, only one. Colorado Parks and Wildlife and National Park Service were the only entities that received prescriptions of BAM in those counties from 2017 through to 2020. So this is like to take animals down, like wildlife. And he shot it into his wife and brutally murdered her. Investigators learned that each of these government entities enforced tight regulations to monitor the BAM prescription storage and use. None of the BAM from the agencies was unaccounted for. Unlikely, the prescription record shows that when Suzanne disappeared, only one private citizen living in that area of the state had access to BAM, and that was Barry Morphew. All offenses against the peace and dignity of the people of the state of Colorado. Are you guys shook? The 12th Judicial District Grand Jury do hereby swear and affirm that each and every true bill returned in this indictment by 2024 to 2025 was arrived at after deliberation with the assent and agreement to the existence of the probable cause by at least 9 members of the Judicial District Grand Jury. The District Attorney. And this is defendant information. Barry Morphew, aka Lee Moore, born October 17th, 1967, male, 195 pounds, 5'10". Bond is hereby set in the amount of $3 million cash only. Conditions: no leaving state of Colorado, GPS unit surrender, passport, compliance with mandatory probation order. This is just the second one too. The first indictment is wild, and we're going to cover it here. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Okay, let's talk. How are you guys feeling? This is insane, right? Okay, I'm going to pull up the autopsy. I want to read like what it says. So it says homicide by, I'm not going to pull it up on the screen because it's just like one little paragraph. Autopsy date 9/27/2023, began at 10:30 a.m. 52 years old Suzanne Morphew, homicide by unspecified means in the setting of butorphanol, azapirone, and methamphetamine intoxication. Reported history of recovery of partial skeleton, medical port, and clothing scattered in and around a shallow grave in Saguache County. Positive dental identification at the time of autopsy examination. Reported history, descendant was reported missing in Chaffee County on May 10th, and her bicycle and helmet were discovered without significant damage in separate locations within the county. No indication of perimortem trauma. Postmortem toxicology of female trabecular bone identified BAM, basically, in her in the bone marrow. Positive DNA identification, right and left femurs. Clinical history, decedent was receiving maintenance Rituxan chemotherapy after complete remission of lymphoma. Based on the information provided to me at the time of this report, it is my opinion that Suzanne Morphew, a 52-year-old white female, died as a result of homicide by unspecified means in the setting of BAM intoxication. These drugs are marketed as a compound injectable immobilizer for wildlife, providing pharmacology, reversible analgesic, sedation, and immobilization. If more information becomes available, this report may be amended. Manner of death, homicide. That's insane. Yeah, she had cancer twice before. When they were living in Indiana in 2018, she beat cancer twice, and then they wanted a fresh start, and that's when they moved to Colorado to live next or closer to their daughter, who was in college at the time there. I'm going to play the press conference. It's only like 15 minutes long, but it gives basically all the information we want. So let's watch that. Isn't this a crazy case?
Is District Attorney Ann Kelly, that is Kelly, who you'll be hearing from shortly. I also have Sheriff from Saguache County, Dan Warwick, WARWICK, Chaffee County Sheriff Andy Rorick, ROHRICH, and Colorado Bureau of Investigation Agent in Charge Chris Adams, ADAMS. After District Attorney Ann Kelly's statement, she'll be available for a few questions. Any other questions after that can be directed to media@da12.state.co.us. Thank you.
I appreciate the members of the media that are here today. I scheduled this briefing to provide an update on the investigation that has been in the hearts and minds
of the people of
Chaffee County since Mother's Day of 2020. Suzanne Morphew was reported missing on Mother's Day 5 years ago. Law enforcement has never stopped working to obtain justice for this mother of two, this daughter, this sister, and this beloved member of the Chaffee County community. Through the tireless efforts of the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, the Saguache County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I can announce today that the 12th Judicial District Grand Jury returned an indictment. The grand jury has indicted Barry Morphew on the single count of murder in the first degree. Law enforcement, the Chaffee County community, and Colorado as a whole has never stopped fighting for justice for Suzanne. Cold case homicides are tremendously difficult. They're difficult for the families of the victims. and the communities who wait patiently for answers. While it may seem at times that the world forgets about these victims, I can assure you that my law enforcement partners and Colorado's law enforcement community do not forget. Every unsolved murder is a tragedy, and we must never give up on our efforts to find answers in these cases. My office will be prosecuting the indictment as Suzanne's remains were found in 𝐭𝐤𝐴𝐤 County, which is a county within my jurisdiction, the 12th Judicial District. I am extremely appreciative of Michael Doherty, who is the elected district attorney in Boulder County. He has consistently committed material resources to small rural DA's offices like mine to assist in the sometimes Herculean efforts to bring justice for victims in rural areas of our state. His commitment to rural Colorado he's continued his commitment with this case. He's provided me with the assistance of a chief deputy in the Boulder County District Attorney's Office to assist me with the investigation and the prosecution. Colorado's community of prosecutors is committed to assisting wherever the need arises. In addition to Mr. Doherty's assistance, District Attorney John Walsh of the Denver District Attorney's Office has committed to providing me with appellate guidance during the case proceedings. So today I have with me Chaffee County Sheriff Andy Rohrick. I stand united with Sheriff Rohrick and Under Sheriff Alex Walker. I stand united in announcing this indictment. Through this process, I have seen firsthand how deeply Sheriff Rohrick and Under Sheriff Alex Walker and the entire Sheriff's Department in Chaffee County cares about this case. I am proud and appreciative of our cross-jurisdictional partnership and their hard and excellent work. I also stand with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who has never wavered in its commitment to this investigation, providing essential intelligence and investigative resources and expertise through the years. I also recognize and appreciate our continued partnership with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation has done incredible work, and their CBI agents and analysts have worked very, very hard to advance the goal of finding answers in this investigation. Here representing the CBI is Agent in Charge Chris Adams with CBI's Pueblo office. I also stand with 𝐭𝐤𝐴𝐤 County Sheriff Dan Warwick, who is here with me as well. He and his office immediately answered the call to action when Suzanne's remains were found in the county he represents. Sheriff Warwick and his deputies are an essential part of this team, responding to the recovery of Suzanne's remains with the highest level of dignity and professionalism. I also want to continue to recognize what I have come to expect in my years as a prosecutor, and that is multi-jurisdictional and multi-state cooperation and partnership. I want to recognize the Arizona Department of Public Safety, who immediately responded to our team's request for assistance in locating and arresting Barry Morphew in the Phoenix area. Mr. Morphew will be held by Arizona authorities pending extradition proceedings in that state. And upon conclusion of those proceedings, Mr. Morphew will be transported to Alamosa County to stand trial on the indictment. This indictment has been unsealed upon the arrest of Mr. Morphew. I asked for this briefing to provide you with an update and provide information to the community. Me and my team recognize the importance of being laser focused on the prosecution and to speak with one voice. And so for that reason, all of the agencies that have been involved in getting us to this place, as well as the prosecutors that have been willing to assist me in this investigation and prosecution. They have all been instructed to send any media requests to my office. And so that's what I'd ask of you. In an effort to be transparent, I'd like to thank the the Office of the Judicial District in this district for making the indictment immediately available. And so you can get a copy of that indictment on the state judicial's website. It is linked on a page labeled Cases of Interest, and it's under Alamosa. Barry Morphew is presumed innocent in this case and that presumption remains with him unless and until he is convicted at trial. And so once again, thank you for allowing me to provide an update to the community on this very important case. And I can take a couple of questions if you have them.
I know why it's like what changed, right? But I think it's because they found more evidence.
And thank you for the question. The question was, what was Barry doing in the Phoenix area? I appreciate the question, and that that information was still being gathered. We have been working very, very hard to make sure that we run down anything we can with respect to this investigation, and our law enforcement officers will certainly be following that. Yes, sir.
In the indictment, you noted that pharmacology expert testified that ban would render the recipient unable to resist any constrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe. Do you believe the dosage of ban was so great it killed her?
He's asking about the medication.
And thank you for that question. I am looking forward to having our team present all of those facts in a court of law. Obviously, I would like to be able to provide my comments, but my ethical obligations will not allow me to. However, I am very appreciative of the Judicial Department for making that indictment available, and I look forward to having our team present this case in court. Yes, ma'am.
Why now?
That's
Why
a great
now?
question. And so we, as prosecutors in Colorado and law enforcement in Colorado, we are very dedicated to making sure that we don't forget the victims of cold case homicides. But we also understand that it is so important to make sure that we have done everything we can to bring a case to court. And we are proud of the work that we've done. Every victim of homicide, murder in Colorado deserves that kind of attention, deserves that kind of work from law enforcement. And I would say that having the opportunity to work on these cases and to bring justice for these victims has been very important to me. Yes. Yeah, let me. Yes.
I mean, I think they basically already had a case built up from the first time, and I believe it had something to do with the prosecution didn't file paperwork on time regarding some information that the defense could have used. That's why charges were initially dropped. So I think that when they drop the case by prejudice means that they can like leave it where it's at. And if they get more information, then they can reopen the case. So they have all the evidence, I believe, from the first time around, the phone evidence, the car evidence, the tranquilizer stuff. And so I think now they have done maybe what they needed to do on their end, and they found more physical evidence as well.
And thank you for that question. The question is whether or not Morphew, what Mr. Morphew's reaction was. And I can tell you that that's going to be part of the case, and we look forward to presenting that in front of a jury.
They're leaving a lot of stuff out, I
Yes,
feel
sir.
like, until court.
Was found in Suzanne's car. Are you guys moving forward? Are you guys using that evidence for this trial? Tell us more about that.
And thank you for that question. The indictment has a wealth of information about that particular topic, as well as the probable cause that supports the arrest.
To read
in
the
this
first
case.
one.
And obviously, we are going to do everything we can to make sure that justice is done for Suzanne. And that includes being as thorough as we can about the facts of the case.
Another question. When you arrest Barry in Arizona, so that's still investigating right now with Arizona law enforcement?
So the Arizona Department of Public Safety has been an incredible partner for us. They organized immediately when we asked them to respond when we received the indictment. So I very much want to thank the Arizona Department of Safety. But, yes, sir.
What will be the biggest difference between the prosecution of this case and the time
That's what you guys are asking.
And the question is, what would be the difference between the prosecution of this case and other prosecutions? You know, justice for cold case homicide victims remains a priority in the state of Colorado, both for prosecutors and for law enforcement. And that's despite any challenges that we may have had in the history of any particular case. That remains a priority for us.
Hey, big girl.
And so
Good to
we
see
have
you.
worked very hard to move forward in the case. This case is a different case, and I would refer you back to the indictment in this case. And we've worked very hard to move forward.
So we need to read the first one, which we
Yes,
will
sir.
do.
On an emotional level or on a personal level, and it's okay if you repeat yourself, can you talk about the journey, your journey from the day this was dismissed until today? Just broad strokes, just tell us that story.
Well, thank you for that question. The question is, what has this process looked like, essentially? What has this process been like for the family, for the community, for our law enforcement partners? And I can tell you that it has been a long road. It has been a long road, and the families of the victim have been so patient. The community has been so patient. But I can tell you that our law enforcement officers have never forgot, have never given up. And they have been working so hard to get to the place where we are today. And so it is never enough to say we're just going to forget about it because it's too hard. And so that has been the process for me. And I'll take maybe one more question here in the front.
Can you elaborate further on where Suzanne's remains were found in relation to Morphew? I know it's undisclosed, but can you provide more detail about where she was found?
So it was in and around the town of Moffin, and that raises an important question that I want to address. And so the remains of Suzanne Morphew were found in 𝐻𝐸 County, and that's obviously a county in my jurisdiction. And so jurisdiction in this county is appropriate. I can tell you that I have reached out to and contacted my friend and colleague, elected District Attorney Jeff Lindsay, who currently covers Chaffee County. He is in full support of our efforts to prosecute this case here and has committed to providing any resources that we need to prosecute this case.
How did you know Morphew was in Arizona?
And the question is I'm sorry, can you say that again?
How did you know Barry was in Arizona?
And I appreciate that question. We obviously have never given up on this investigation. And so working with our law enforcement partners, we were able to.
Curious what he was doing, man.
Could anyone else possibly face charges?
So right now we have the indictment in front of us, and we're committed to working hard to get that done. So, and this will be the
basically
last
Jeff
question.
Tam.
Thank you so much.
Just one last question. From a community.
She's a pretty lady.
This community's been through a lot with the district attorney's office. And
I like her.
we've watched you take it over and repair it, stand here with law enforcement, something this community might not have seen in the past. We've watched you build a staff. Now we're at the point where we've got all kinds of television cameras here because you've done what you've done in this particular case. Speak to what kind of satisfaction you have and gotten here, and is the job done with your staff, and can you now move forward?
Well, and thank you. The question relates to the status of our district attorney's office and where we've been in the last 3 years. And thank you for the question. The effort that we undertook to come to the San Luis Valley, that I undertook to come to the San Luis Valley and build the district attorney's office was quite tremendous. But I can tell you that the collaboration of prosecutors across the state to assist me, to assist my staff, to assist law enforcement has been absolutely tremendous. It is a testament to how strong our law enforcement community is and how united the prosecutors in the state of Colorado are. And so assisting me in building the office in the San Luis Valley, that is a testament to the assistance that I've received across the state. So thank you for the question.
Thank you for what you've done.
One last question, and when do you expect Barry Morphew to show up?
Thank you. So he's currently being held by the authorities in Arizona. He will go through a process of extradition, and when that process concludes, he will be then transported back to Colorado. So thank you so much.
Okay, so He was in Arizona at the time of the arrest, which is interesting. I'm curious what he was doing there. Maybe he's living there now. I wanted to play this clip. It was from 3 years ago when it first got, so after the charges were initially dropped, he ended up turning around and suing the prosecution for $15 million. And that was in process now that it was still in process. So he was looking to sue them, and now he's back being charged. So looks like he's probably not going to sue them. This clip it's a short minute, 4 minute. He got out of Dodge. Yeah, he knows. He's like, they're gonna figure it out. I think they had everything on him already. I just think they needed to piece things together and do things the right way for the prosecution. It seems to me she took over and reopened the case they most likely sat on for a while. Yeah, we'll find out more too. I'm gonna play a clip of the hearing that he shows up to too. So let's play this one. And his daughters, I can't imagine how they feel. They were like defending him and stuff, and now, and this interview is with them, and now they're back to square one, you know, with this whole thing. Lost both parents, essentially.
Are speaking out with their father, Barry, for the first time since murder charges
3
against
years
him were
ago.
dropped
This is
last
it.
month.
3 years ago.
Amy is here with the exclusive interview. Good morning, Amy.
Hey, good morning, Michael. For more than a year, a Colorado man was accused by state prosecutors of killing his wife, who disappeared on Mother's Day back in 2020. But just days before he was scheduled to go on trial, Barry Morphew had the charges against him dismissed, and now he and his daughters are speaking out. And in the coming weeks, their attorney says they will request an investigation into how they say the district attorney mishandled this case.
We've been silent for a long time, and
I can't
we
imagine
decided that we finally want to break the silence.
This morning, just days before the second anniversary of her disappearance, the family of Suzanne Morphew is speaking out for the first time since the murder charges against her husband were dropped.
It's been an emotional roller coaster, but we feel like we can finally take our first steps in healing, which is a blessing. And yeah, we just know our dad better than anyone else. And we know he was not involved in our mom's disappearance.
Mallory and Macy Morphew standing by their father, who investigators believed was responsible for their mother's disappearance 2 years ago. The three seen walking out of court arm in arm just moments after the charges against him were dropped.
We want to heal. We feel like we haven't been able to heal these past 2 years.
The family says Suzanne left her Colorado home for a bike ride, but never returned.
I just love my girls, and I love my wife, and I just want her to be found.
But investigators told a different story, arresting
scary.
Barry Morphew. The charges ranging from first-degree murder to tampering with physical evidence. Prosecutors argued that Morphew discovered his wife was having an affair, then murdered her, disposed of her body, and staged a bike crash in a rural area. Releasing this body camera footage from the hours after she was reported missing, police saying Morphew touched evidence.
Hey, could you not touch that bike with your hands, please?
Morphew's daughters say he isn't a killer and are celebrating the dismissal of the case, now demanding District Attorney Linda Stanley should do more.
I just hope that Linda will step up to the plate and do everything she can to find our mom.
Yeah,
because what
something
they've
seems
done is
very
not
off.
fair. And we're never going to stop looking for our mom.
Court filings say that while authorities are close to
3 years
discovering
ago.
Suzanne's body, weather has complicated the efforts. The location where Suzanne's body is believed to be has 5 feet of snow concealing it. But the family's attorney says authorities have mishandled the case and are planning to file a complaint against the DA.
And if you want to honor Suzanne and you want to honor the daughters, go find Suzanne.
The DA's office telling ABC News they and law enforcement have been diligently searching for Suzanne Morphew since she was reported missing, and that they are continuing to do so.
Prosecutors need to be held responsible, and they need to pay for the damage they've caused to Barry, which is frankly nearly irreparable, because it's hard for anybody to believe that Barry is not who they claim he was.
Now, the family spoke out this weekend.
In my opinion, who else is going to have Bam? He's the only one in the area for like years. I mean, come on now. He found out he was being cheated on after he stuck around with his wife while she had cancer. He was probably upset. That was the motive. She was having a full-blown affair, was in love with someone else. And he was abusive already, allegedly. Okay, this is a 2-minute clip from this week. I think he showed up to some kind of hearing or something. Let me see. Yeah.
To face a murder charge. Friday night, Barry Morphew had a decision to make. Would he challenge extradition to Colorado, where prosecutors want to try him for the murder of his wife? Welcome to 12 News at 6 o'clock on this Saturday. I'm Rachel Cole. 12 News journalist Sean Rice tracking the very latest on this high-profile case that's made its way here to Arizona. Sean?
Yeah, Rachel, this is one of the more high-profile murder cases over the last decade in Colorado. Nobody thought there was an Arizona chapter. Well, now there is. Friday morning, detectives with the Arizona DPS placed Barry Morphew in handcuffs after he was indicted for murder in Colorado this week. Right before the clock struck midnight last night, Morphew told an Arizona judge he had no problem waiving his right to challenge being transported back to Colorado to face that murder charge. Now, Morphew has been at the center of multiple Dateline episodes right here on NBC. His wife, Suzanne, previously went missing in Salida, Colorado. This was back on Mother's Day in 2020. Her husband, Barry, was previously charged with first-degree murder, accused of killing Suzanne, but at the time of his arrest, her body had never been found. The case against Barry was rife with prosecutorial misconduct to the point that a judge previously dismissed the case. Then came a surprise back in September 2023. Suzanne Morphew's body was found in a rural part of southern Colorado, and the results of a toxicology report pointed right back at Barry as being the person responsible for killing Suzanne. Property records we obtained yesterday reveal Morphew likely moved here to the Valley after that case was originally dismissed sometime in 2022. He's been paying taxes on a property at a trailer park in Cave Creek for the last several years. Now, in court last night, a judge explained the rights he has to fight being sent to Colorado. Those are rights he ultimately gave up.
Do you understand you have the right to demand that a governor's warrant be signed by both governors of each state before you're returned?
Yes.
And do you understand that you would have a right to bail, in this case, a cash bond of $3 million?
Yes.
And do you want to give up those rights and sign this paperwork?
Yes.
Yeah, those are the rights he has to fight extradition. Now, investigators in Colorado now have 30 days to travel here to Arizona, pick him up at the Maricopa County Jail, and then transport him back to Alamosa County. Until then, he will be held inside that jail on a $3 million cash-only bond. Now, prosecutors in Colorado said yesterday they have never lost sight of this goal, to get justice for Suzanne Morphew. Many across Colorado thought this may be a cold case, a case that's never solved, but this development certainly is a hopeful one for her family. Rachel.
Sean, thank you.
You know, I'm not worried. I'm not really too worried about the prosecutors. I think this time around they're going to get it right. And I believe obviously Suzanne needs justice, and I believe that he might be guilty. We're going to read the first indictment. So get your popcorn ready for tomorrow night, because I'm not going to do that one today because it's like 100 pages. But I do believe that he had something to do with it. Now, the whole thing with the daughters, I don't know. I'm going to show you guys some pictures really quick before we start the documentary. We're going to watch a short documentary on this case that I really, really enjoyed, and I wanted to share with you guys here so we can watch it together. But I was going to share some pictures of, so I hate all these ads. Here's Suzanne. That's her right there. I think there was a lot of familial stuff going on, and you know what? The daughters might not be speaking on it, and for some reason, but it's all going to come out in court. You know what I mean? During the trial. If there's going to be a trial, which there clearly is going to be a trial. This is his mugshot from this week. Why he looks so angry? His daughters definitely fear him. That's what you think? Yeah. I think there's stuff going on. Beautiful family. I know. I heard she was really sweet too. A lot of the research that I did. Okay. Make sure you hit the like button. Please, please, please. Thank you for being here. This documentary is really good, so hopefully you guys can hang out and watch it. Yeah, very beautiful family. This was an older episode, and they redid it to fit.
Nationwide search.
We knew about the affair, and that's why they were acting a little more weird and maybe defending the father more because of the affair. But allegedly, he might have had some affairs too that weren't. See, is it still twirling on your end? I didn't know if it was on your end, but it was on mine. Okay, there we go. We think Barry didn't know and that Barry wasn't pissed, and that's why he wasn't beating on her. So first he was saying it was a mountain lion, and then he was saying he was chasing chipmunks, but it is alleged he was chasing her to shoot her with the dart, the tranquilizer.
Suzanne's body during that.
These telemetric reports too from your car, they're absolutely reliable. They can absolutely be used in court. They do all the time. Like they're like not criminal. This totally gives off vibes of Chris Watts and disgusting pig vomit stuff. And when I watch this video, you know, like us true crime junkies, I get that Chris Watts standing in that front door. I can never. That haunts me. And it smelled like bleach because remember they ended up finding the bones and they had bleach and smelled of bleach. So, okay, so it could be two things. Either he's innocent and so he's like, whatever, I don't need a lawyer, or he's not very smart because why did he do like 100 interviews with no lawyer?
Absolutely correct.
I think the body was exhumed. I think he buried her body. And then I think later, in between that time, I think before she was fully found, and then when he was free, I think the body was moved. I think it was moved. I think he moved it, and that's scary. But he's used to things like this, right? Like he was a hunter. An autopsy. We read through the autopsy. Isn't that crazy? I really thought that was a great little documentary on like the details of the case. That's crazy, right? I don't know. I think he, in my opinion only, I think that he is responsible. I think something is off with the daughters. I would like to hear what they have to say about things. I'm curious what other information is going to come out via cell phones and stuff during trial. What do you guys think? Was it Barry? Was it not Barry? The girls really believe their dad. Yeah, I'm shook. I'm shook. So they believe somebody else did it. That was really good. Yeah, it gives you like all the facts. I thought that's why I wanted to share it. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate that. The daughters are sticking by their dad because it's all they have left. That's also very true, number 7. Most definitely Barry and his worker. Oh, you think so? I don't know. We're going to deep dive this. So if you're not familiar with my deep dives, we usually do like a couple different parts. So the indictment that we read at the beginning, the 10-page indictment, that's recently, but we're going to read the original one tomorrow evening. So that live will be scheduled. It's pretty long, so we're probably going to have to split it into 2. I also have a live coming up on Luigi Mangione. We're finishing that document. Now that Karen Reed is done, we can get back to our deep diving. So after this, we're going to continue to follow this case. We're going to go through all the documents, like all the older documents, body cam footage, all of it. We're going to go through all of it. I want to know everything about this case, and I'm curious to see how this will play out. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you hit the like button. We have another live after this, Brian Kohberger. So I will meet you guys over there. Thank you for being here. I hope Suzanne gets justice. This is a crazy cold case that has suddenly come back up. I was expecting it to get reopened. I didn't think they were just going to let it be after he got the charges dismissed due to misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. I will see you on the next one. Make sure you hit the like button. See you guys in like 15 minutes. Bye.